Okay, so our topic now would be about the disaster and emergency planning. Yeah, so it is quite exciting because we experience these emergencies, these disasters. And lately yung earthquake, di ba? We have a lot of disasters na nangyayari. And we will talk about them. Ayan. Okay, so we have seen those disasters or ano yung nangyayari tuwing may disaster. Ayan. So it is important na magkaroon tayo ng disaster and emergency planning. Ayan. So that we can prepare ourselves because we do not know kung kailan magkakaroon ng disaster. And it is not only limited doon sa flooding or storms. And there are a lot of things that happen during a catastrophe or a calamity na pag-usapan natin mamaya. Yung types ng ating disasters. Yung ating emergency and disaster planning, this is one of the important interrelated function in a security system. So when it comes to the system of security, kailangan din prepared tayo pagdating doon sa emergency or mga disasters. It is important in any organization. Kahit saan pang organization yan, kahit sa school. Parte din yan ng planning sa school. And meron tayong mga officers who are responsible pagdating sa mga ganitong cases. So it is important in any organization such as the physical security, yung fire protection natin, the guard forces, the security of documents, and personnel security. Your emergency and disaster planning refers to the preparation in advance of protective and safety measures for unforeseen events such as yung disasters and emergencies. It could either be natural or ang cause is human actions. So, kailangan meron tayong preparation in advance. Isa din yan sa mga plans na importante in all organizations. Yan kahit sa establishments. Din yan, companies, organizations. Yung mga malls, yan, meron din silang disaster and emergency plan sa kanilang institution. Other institutions, government man or private, kailangan may disaster and emergency planning. Because it doesn't choose its victims. Pagka nagkaroon ng calamity, hindi pipiliin ni calamity kung sino yung magiging biktima niya. Pagka nagkaroon ng disaster, lahat ng nasa lugar na yan apektado. Whatever state man ng tao, whatever social status, as long as itong lugar na to, may nangyayaring disaster dyan, lahat dyan, apektado. Yan now, ang sukatan dyan, gaano ba ka-prepared itong mga taong to? Yan, paano sila nag-prepare nung dumating or bago dumating itong emergency or itong disaster na ito? At paano nakatulong sa kanila yung kanilang preparations or their plans? And what can we do to prepare for these disasters or emergency? So, our disaster plans are the outline of the actions to be taken by those designated for specific jobs or for specific job. Ibig sabihin, meron tayong mga personnel na may responsibility to do these disaster plans. Yeah. So, kailangan magawa nila ng maayos yung kanilang jobs. Dahil buhay yung nakasalalay dito. Yeah. If we have these disaster plans, it will result in expeditious and orderly execution of relief and assistance to protect lives, and of course, kasama na rin yung properties dyan sa mga pinoprotektahan natin. So, these plans must also be rehearsed so that when the bell ring, there will be speed and not haste in execution. Yan yung reason bakit nagkakaroon tayo ng mga earthquake drills. Ayan, bakit may mga simulation tayo? No, dahil nga, kailangan natin i-rehearse yan. We need to rehearse. Ayan. Kailangan natin na i-practice, no, itong
recording stopped.
Ayan, kailangan natin i-practice itong plano natin kung magiging effective nga ba siya. And or, para kapag dumating na itong disaster na ito, for example, yung earthquake, no, alam na nila, aware na sila kung ano yung dapat nilang gawin. Yan. Next, let's talk about speed. Yan. Alam naman natin na pag nagkaroon ng disaster, mabilis yung mangyayari. Yan. Sa ilang minuto lang, marami na nasira. So, dapat, mabilis din tayo pagdating sa pag-accomplish ng ating mga plans, ng ating disaster plans. Speed is the accurate accomplishment of a plan as per schedule, while haste is doing a job quickly with errors. Kailangan, mabilis ka, pero tama yung laman ng plano mo. Tama kung ano yung ginagawa mo. Hindi yung mabilis ka nga, sobrang bilis mo magtrabaho, yun pala, ang daming errors, ang daming mali-mali dun sa trabaho mo na itinasa. So, kailangan, meron kang speed and meron ding accuracy pagdating sa paggawa ng plans natin, especially kung disaster and emergency plans yan. Dahil nga, buhay ng tao ang nakasalalay dito. Okay? So, we have to be prepared. Kailangan tayong maging prepared and of course, kailangan din natin i-prepare, no, yung ibang tao. We need to help other people to be prepared. Especially your loved ones, diba? Your family, your friends. So, pwede nyo silang ma-inform or tulungan na maging prepared din pag nagkaroon ng disaster. Or before pa man magkaroon ng disaster, dapat nag-anticipate na tayo na hindi natin alam, baka bukas, sa makalawa, sa isang linggo, magkaroon ng disaster. Yan, na wag naman sanang mangyari. Yan. So, those plans, no, these disaster and emergency plans, they are special in nature. And it must be prepared with people whose expertise in their respective field is legion together with the coordination and help of management, security force, law enforcement agencies, and selected employees. And so, kailangan yung gagawa ng plans niyan, may expertise sila. May specialization, may training na sila dyan, may practice na sila, or may background sila dyan. Dapat credible itong taong gagawa ng disaster and emergency plans. Hindi yung kung sino-sino na lang na wala namang experience pagdating sa disaster and emergency planning. Or wala man lang siyang training. Wala siyang kaalam-alam sa mga protocol na dapat gawin kapag nagkaroon ng emergency or ng disasters. Yan. So, kailangan din makipag-coordinate, no, sa management, security force, sa ating mga law enforcement agencies, and some selected employees in some organizations or companies. Yan. So, we need to understand disaster. No? Ano nga ba yung disaster? So, here's its brief definition. A disaster is a sudden, unforeseen, extraordinary occurrence. It can be considered as an emergency, but an emergency may not always be a disaster. Magkaiba si emergency and si disaster. Yung disaster, this is very extraordinary. Yan. O pwedeng magkaroon ng emergency, pero hindi every time na may emergency, disaster na yan. But, pag nagkaroon ng disaster, ibig sabihin, may emergency tayo. Okay? I hope that you get that, no? Pagka may disaster ka, automatic emergency yan. Pero hindi ibig sabihin, for example naman, ang sinabi natin, may emergency tayo. Pero hindi ibig sabihin na emergency yung sinabi mo, disaster na kaagad yan. And so, for example, may nag-report, no? Meron pong disaster na nangyayari dito sa lugar na ito. And ibig sabihin, may emergency. But, for example, the report is an emergency. May emergency pong nangyayari. Yan. Pero hindi ibig sabihin na may emergency, disaster na agad ang nangyayari. We cannot assume na may disaster na kaagad. Okay? So, that is your disaster. It is sudden, unforeseen, no? Biglaan, hindi natin inaasahan na mangyayari. For example nga, nung nagkaroon ng lindol. Who knows na magkakaroon ng lindol sa araw at oras na yan? And wala namang nakapagsabi or nakapag-warn sa atin. Hindi tayo nabigyan ng warning na bukas magkakaroon ng lindol. And bukas magkakaroon ng ganitong disaster. Or bukas sasabog yung bulkan. Wala namang nakakapagsabi sa atin. Though yung ating technologies, unti-unti, they are improving and nade-develop. And yung ating weather, we can now monitor the weather. Yan. And pinag-aaralan na rin yung actions no, ng vulkan, yung mga changes dyan. So, there are some improvements na rin. So that we can at least have no, an idea kung possible na or malapit na bang magkaroon ng disaster or hindi. Yan. Pero walang makakapagsabi ng eksaktong araw at oras kung kailan mangyayari itong disaster na ito. So, it means, no, kailangan maging prepared tayo sa lahat ng oras. Yan. Na kung sakali mang magkaroon ng disaster sa susunod na mga oras, at least you have prepared yourself. Yan. So, we actually have no two broad categories ng ating emergency. Yan. So, first is yung natural crisis. Yan, or natural disaster. And yung man-made crisis or human-induced crisis or induced catastrophe. Pare-parehas lang yun. Okay, man-made crisis, human-induced crisis, induced catastrophe, pare-parehas lang yan. Pero start muna tayo sa ating natural disaster or natural crisis. Pag sinabi mong natural, it is not controlled by the human. Now, this is a natural event. For example, floods, earthquake, famine, typhoon, diseases, volcano eruption, crashes, industrial accident, fires, landslide, avalanches, tsunamis, etc. So, lahat yan, they fall on the natural crisis. No? Ibig sabihin, walang interference, no? Yung tao dyan sa natural crisis. Walang ginawa yung tao para magkaroon ng natural crisis. Or hindi siya ang may control no, sa natural crisis. Though, no, yung human actions, for example, pinabayaan natin yung environment natin, it can actually cause natural crisis. Yan. Dahil dun sa mga kapabayaan natin sa ating environment. Yan. But, these natural crises, no, they happen because of natural causes. Yung earthquake, hindi naman po pwede na kontrolin niya ng tao. For example, gusto niyo magkaroon ng earthquake dito sa lugar na to, may gagawin siyang action. No? It happens naturally. And now, yung tao po pwede rin siyang gumawa ng crisis. Now, ito yung tinatawag nating man-made crisis or the induced catastrophe. Ano yung ginagawa ng tao para magkaroon ng crisis? Yan. Ito yung mga examples natin. We have the arson, bombing, kidnapping, robbery, hostage-taking, skyjacking, assassination, ambush, and other acts of terrorism. So, all of those are done by the human. Ibig sabihin, ang may gawa nito, yung tao. So, napakadali lang naman na i-distinguish the natural crisis and the man-made crisis or the human-induced crisis. So, yun ang two broad categories ng ating emergency. So, let's talk about the commodities or what are the important things to do during the disaster. So, first things first, we need to identify the type of disaster occurred in the area so that we will know what type of equipments we should bring in the area so that we will know what are the proper things to do when responding to the area. And second, we need to identify those that would affect your operation in the area. You also need to gather information bago ka sumugod. Hindi yung basta na lang tayo susugod doon sa area nang hindi natin alam kung ano yung meron doon. And we need to determine which scenarios are plausible or ano yung mga reasonable or possible na reasonable scenarios, no? Things that we will encounter during the rescue. And you also need to survey your physical facilities and operating procedures to determine preparedness. Anong paghahanda ang ginawa nila bago nagkaroon ng sakuna? Yan, or have they been prepared? No? May mga measures ba silang ginawa before the disaster? Yan, ano-anong mga preparations yung nagawa nila? And you also need to survey surrounding area to determine if there are operations or facilities near which might create emergencies. No? Kailangan din natin tignan yung adjacent areas natin. Baka, pagdating natin doon, meron pa palang mas malalang nangyayari sa kapaligiran ng area na yan. Or, may possible na pangyayari na makaapekto doon sa ating area. We need to watch out for landslides or kung may lindol, kailangan din alamin natin yung mga aftershocks. And though it is normal na after ng lindol, magkakaroon ng aftershocks. And we also need to establish a liaison with the law enforcement agencies and emergency response groups. Ano yung liaison? That is communication, coordination with other law enforcement agencies. Para pagdating natin doon, nakahanda tayo. Diba? Or, kung mayroon ng ibang law enforcement agencies na nandyan, ano pa yung pwede natin i-provide na kailangan doon sa area? Or, kung tayo naman yung nauna sa area, ano yung mga tulong na maaaring ibigay sa atin ng other law enforcement agencies or other response groups. Kailangan din natin makipag-communicate sa kanila with these activities. And you also need to know where to get help, how to get help, and what help you can expect. And of course, if you are a rescuer, and kailangan din alam mo kung paano ka makakahingi ng tulong in case na ikaw din yung mangailangan ng tulong. And so, for example, pagdating mo dun sa area, may hindi inaasahang pangyayari. And now, you are also a victim of the disaster. So, dapat alam mo rin kung paano mo ilagay yung sarili mo din into safety. And you should also know who currently has authority to make key decisions, decision makers in your organization, and who control access to these emergencies. Yan, sino ba yung mga nagde-desisyon? For example, we have seen other things doon sa area that will affect the decision. Yan. So, pwede natin na i-suggest yan or ano pa yung mga dapat natin gawin doon. And we need to inform, no, those personnel, lalo na yung may access, ayan, sa decision making. And we also need to review emergency procedures, its completeness, and accuracy. Ayan. So, dapat tama yung ginagawa nating procedure. Diba? Ayan. Dahil kapag mali yung ginawang procedure, for example, sa CPR, ayan, mali pala yung ginawang procedure, anong nangyayari? Mas mapapahamak lang yung ibang tao instead na makatulong tayo. Ayan. Next, let's proceed to the elements of effective crisis or disaster management. Ayan. So, like any construction project, the crisis or the disaster management pyramid requires a solid foundation. So, how would we be able to effectively manage a crisis or a disaster? Kailangan daw natin ng solid foundation. That's why we have the disaster management pyramid. Ayan. So, here's how it looks like. Ano ba yung nandiyan sa ating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 8. Ayan. So, this is your crisis management pyramid. Let's see kung ano ang nandito. Let's first start, of course, with number 1. Ayan. Think about the unpopular. Now, we need to recognize the management's willingness and involvement. There must be a clear recognition that emergencies, distinct possibilities is anytime, and that preparation for them must begin now. Think about the unexpected. Emergencies are unexpected. We do not know when will calamities strike. Hindi natin alam kung kailan yan mangyayari. Basta na lang silang mangyayari. They are very unexpected. So, dapat, ngayon pa lang, maghanda na tayo. We need to begin now. And place, in your number 2, we need to recognize dangers and opportunities. We need to recognize what are the weaknesses and strengths of the team, of the place. Yan. For example, ang lugar, Baguio City. Saan prone ang Baguio City? Landslides. Or, for example, other places kung saan prone ang flooding. So, ano yung mga pwede natin or opportunities natin? Na before man yan mangyari, meron na tayong opportunity to prepare. And place in your number 3, defining the control and crisis response. So, according to Aesop, to do the right thing at the right season is a great art. So, kailangan alam natin ano yung tamang procedure doon sa crisis na nangyayari. And we need to do the right procedure for the right thing or the right conflict, right crisis. And if we will be able to do that, then we will be effective. And place in your number 4, harness and environment. And this is the ability to organize willingness and delegate, providing an atmosphere in which personnel can do a job or can do job for which they are selected. And providing the right facilities and backups. We need to task this personnel. We need to assign them correctly. Kung sino ba yung may mga training sa ganitong situations. We need to identify them. Ayan. And number 5, containing the damage. Hindi na natin dapat palakihin pa yung damage. We need to contain. Kung ano man yung naabutan natin, dapat hindi nakakalat man yung damage na yan. So, physical damage frequently is impossible to control, but emotional and public relation is not. Now, what else can we contain? The emotion of the public. We can do that through public relation. There are some traumatizing events And during the crisis, yung mga nasunugan, you would see the victims crying outside their house. And because they lost everything they have. And so what can we do? We can also comfort them. And number 6, successful resolution. Damage has been contained. So we need to contain the damage and in your number 6 step, and if you are able to contain the damage, we can now return to normalcy. Number 7. So kailangan maibalik sa normal or unti-unti tayong babalik sa normal after the crisis. We need to provide assistance to victims and safety equipment while normal operations are going on. And the emergency has been totally addressed. And lastly, through aggressive countermeasures and reduction to vulnerability or of vulnerability to similar emergencies in the future. And avoid repetition. Alam na natin kung ano yung nangyari during that time. During that crisis. So, the next time, mas prepared na tayo dapat. And hindi na dapat maging ganon kalaki yung damage. We should be able to minimize the damage in the future. Yeah. Next, let's proceed to the list of effective crisis or disaster management based on the pyramid. And so first is good planning. We need to have good planning. How can we do that? First, we need to consider all possibilities. No, lahat ng posibilidad dyan sa isang scenario na yan. For example, nagkaroon ng landslide. Possible na pagdating din natin doon magkaroon ng another landslide. And there are a lot of possible things that could happen. So don't focus only on immediate problem. And you also need to establish contacts dahil kailangan nga natin makipag-coordinate sa other law enforcement agencies. Yan. And you need to have good personnel. Look for experience and knowledge. Kailangan trained sila for that. So if they're not yet ready or they are still raw for that, we need to train them, test, and evaluate. And use people effectively and humanely. Dapat makatao pa rin ang pagturing sa mga personnel. And organize to mitigate stress. And as much as possible, ma-minimize natin kung ano yung stress na maaaring maidulot ng disaster. And with our personnel and even with the victims. Kaya nga meron tayong orientation, may briefing and debriefing to mitigate the stress that it might cause. Yan. And you also need to have good shakedowns. You need to test plans and people. You need to evaluate and revise plans kung kinakailangan. And you also need to keep an open mind. And for example, ikaw ang decision maker and mayroong reports, or there are some ideas or information that you have received from your personnel, you can also consider them. And you need to maintain control. Be creative. Look for the real problem. And you need to have confidence in your plans. Dahil kung wala kang confidence sa plans mo, it will not be effective. Yan. And also, keep records so that you can keep on track and get back to normal. Yan. So, pagkabalik natin sa normalcy, you need to evaluate and document and give reward if needed. Yan. May mga bayani tayong personnel and we need also to analyze implications. Let's proceed to PNP Critical Incident Management Operational Procedures or the CMOP. Ayan. So, as a matter of policy, yung ating mga man-made or human-induced critical incidents, ang may responsibility dyan ay ang ating NPOC. Ano yung NPOC? National and Local Peace and Order Council. Ayan. Ano yung mga human-induced incidents na yan? Pagka may mga hostage taking. Diba? Those are human-induced incidents. What else? Arson. Ayan, mga rallies. Ayan, riots. All of those which are created by human. Ayan. Kapag natural calamities naman, sino po ang may responsibility? That is the National and Local Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council or CNDRRMC. So, dito nakikilos or dito, palagi natin naririnig, no? Yan ang ating announcements from the NDRRMC. Yan. And lower level organizations, so na MPOC and NDRRMC, they can also take cognizance of the responsibilities ascribed in their national organization. Yan. So, generally, yan yung policy. And ang PNP naman, ano po ang role during this crisis, no? So, being at the forefront of crisis situations, PNP must play an active role organizing its own critical incident management committee. So, we have the Critical Incident Management Committee in the PNP or the CIMC to support the NPOC and the NDRRMC. So, ano po ba yung ating Crisis Management Committee? This is primarily concerned with the formulation of crisis management procedures, integration and orchestration of government, military or police, and public efforts towards the prevention and control of crisis incidents. All actions and decisions taken by the CMC shall be within the policies laid down by the corresponding peace and order councils. Kaya po nakikita natin, no, yung ating mga kapulisan, sundalo, DDFP, Philippine Coast Guard, tuwing nagkakaroon ng crisis. Yan. Because they also help, no, yan. They also support the NPOC and the NDRRMC. Now, si Crisis Management Committee, it will formulate kung anong procedures ang dapat na gawin. Yan ng ating government, military, and police. So, kung nagkaroon, for example, lumala yung weather, no, dito sa isang particular na lugar na to, pwede tayong mag-deploy ng personnel. So, may mga policies tayo dyan. May mga procedures tayo na susundin. Yan. Hindi yung umulan lang ng konti, andito na yung personnel. So, meron lang tayong procedure na dapat sundin. Yan. Next, let's proceed to your National and Local Peace and Order Council or the NPOC. Yan. Sino po ang chair ng ating NPOC? That is the Secretary of the Interior and Local Government or the SILG. Secretary of our Department of the Interior and Local Government. Yan. Ano po ang function ni NPOC? It is tasked to contribute to the strategies of the National Security Council, coordinate and monitor, and it serves as a forum for deliberation for peace and order concern. So, all of those human-induced crises that affects our peace and order. Andiyan ang NPOC to coordinate and monitor these events. And this council outlines its roles and responsibilities to threats to peace and order. So, kung may mga threats sa peace and order, we also have the NPOC to monitor these things or these events. Ayan. And let's now proceed with the incident command system. Ayan. You will also encounter this. And if you take your master's, yan, or other subjects or courses that you would want that is related to our field. Yan. Ano po ba yung incident command system? This is used by public agencies to manage emergencies. And yung ating incident command systems, they can also be used by businesses to work together with public agencies during emergencies. So, this is part of our preparedness kapag ka nagkaroon ng emergency. So, for example, sa school natin, our safety personnel could follow an incident command system. In case na merong mangyaring incident, meron tayong command system for that. And the actions would be systematic. Yan. There is a process, there is a procedure in case na magkaroon ng ganitong klase ng emergency. And even in businesses, in malls, or other establishments, yan. Maaari din silang maglagay ng mga buttons. Yan na. That will call the attention of the police. Yan. So that it will be easier to contact yan, or to ask for help in case na magkaroon ng emergency. Yan. So, even business establishments can also follow an incident command system. Yan. So, paano nga ba ang flow or ano nga ba ang structure ng isang incident command system? Yan. So, you have your operations section, the planning, logistics, and yung finance under the incident commander. Yan. And his responsibilities, part of his responsibilities is the safety, liaison, and public information. So, we have an incident commander that is responsible yan sa pagpapatakbo ng ating incident command system. Yan. So, sino nga ba ang incident commander or ano ang kanyang role? What are his functions and responsibilities? First of all, he is in charge of the organization's on-scene response. Yan. Pagka nagkaroon ng emergency, sino yung in charge dyan? That is the incident commander. Yan. And he maintains command until public agencies arrive and assume command. Yan. So, before, for example, sa school, mayroong nangyayari, example lang, hostage taking. So, meron tayong incident commander na personnel ng ating school. At pagdating ng, for example, ng police officers, yan, ipapasa na yung authority or yung command yan doon sa ating police officers. Or, when relieved at the start of the next operational period. And your incident commander also assesses the situation. And may order warning of persons at risk or potentially at risk to take appropriate protective actions. And he also notifies or verifies internal teams, departments, public agencies, regulators, contractors, and suppliers who have been notified or if they have been notified. And he can also appoint others to incident command positions kung kinakailangan. So what else? He also briefs staff on current organization and activities. Siya yung mag-brief sa mga personnel. And maaari din siya mag-assign ng task sa mga personnel or schedule planning meeting. He also determines the incident objectives and strategy, identify information needed or required by others, ensure planning or strategy meetings are held and attended as needed. And he can also coordinate activities with the EOC or other law enforcement agencies, identify priorities and activities, provide impact and assessment for business continuity, crisis communication and management. He also reviews requests for resources and confirm who has authority to approve procurement, approve all requests for resources as needed in case na magkaroon ng emergency. and provide information to and coordinate with crisis communications or media relations team. And lastly, terminate the response and demobilize resources when the situation has been stabilized. So, yan ang roles and functions of your incident commander. Now, proceed tayo with the safety. Yan. We talk about safety. Number 1, what do we need to do? Identify and assess hazardous situations. Now, we need to prevent accidents. We need to survey the area. Ano yung mga possible hazards na mangyari? Yan. To people in this particular area of our responsibility. Yan. Ano yung mga possible accidents na mangyari? Yan. And number 2, prepare safety plan. Ensure messages are communicated. And stop unsafe acts. Correct unsafe conditions. Kaya may mga paalala sa atin with regards to our safety. Yan. And the liaison naman is communicating. And so we need to have point of contact with outside agencies and companies and monitor operations to identify inter-organizational problems. Communicate, contact, coordinate, liaison. Yan. And your public information. So what do we do for public information? Notify spokespersons and crisis communications team. Develop information for use in media debriefings or media briefings. No? Kaya nga may mga conferences, diba, with the media. And kailangan ma-ensure natin na tama ang information that would be released to media. Ayan. And obtain incident commanders and management approval for all news releases. And conduct periodic media briefings, arrange for tours, interviews, and briefings, and monitor and forward useful information to the media. Bakit importante yung public information? So that the public would be aware of what is happening. And dapat din tama yung information. Hindi fake news ang nire-release ng media. Ayan. And for the operations naman, ano ang ginagawa ng ating personnel sa operations section? So, they manage all tactical operations during the incident. Ayan. So, all of the techniques, no, ayan, or procedures na gagawin in the operation. And assist in the development of the operations portion of the incident action plan. And ensure safe tactical operations for all responders in conjunction with any assigned safety officer. They can also request additional resources to support tactical operations. What else? Expedite appropriate changes in the operations portion of the incident action plan. Maintain close communication with the incident commander. So, all of the things, all of the actions, lahat yan ay responsibility ng ating operations. So, next, planning. Yan. So, ano naman ang ating activities, no? During or activities ng ating planning section. Yan. So, first is to conduct facilitate planning meetings. Kailangan ng plans. No? So that we will be able to prepare an incident action plan. And we also need to determine for technical experts, no, from within the company or outside, such as yung mga engineers, no, to support the plan. And for example, yung pag-survey sa mga buildings, are they safe, no, in case na magkaroon ng earthquake. Yan. Or, itong building na to, no, safe pa ba na gamitin? Yan. Or dapat nang mag-evacuate from that. And coordinate with business continuity and senior management teams. Ito sa mga business establishments. And what else? Assemble information on alternative strategies and plans. And of course, kailangan natin ng alternatives. Kailangan natin ng options, no, to choose from in case na hindi mag-work yung ating plan A. Next, assess current and potential impacts on people, property, and environment. Yung mga possible, no, na damages na mangyari when it comes to people, property, and even in our environment. And compile and display incident status information. So that is the planning section of your incident command system. Yan. And the next, let's proceed to the logistics. Ano ba ang ginagawa sa logistics? They provide resources to stabilize the incident and support personnel. Pagka sinabi mo logistics, it is more on the equipments, yung mga resources natin. No? Yan. They support personnel, systems, and equipment. Sila ang taga-provide. Yan. The workspace or facilities for incident management staff, the media briefing center, yung transportation, communications equipment, food, water, shelter, and medical care. So, lahat ng gamit na kailangan natin, saan yan kukunin? Sa logistics. Yan. And your logistics ensures incident command posts and other facilities if they have been established. We also assess communication needs and facilitates communication between teams, personnel, and agencies. And they also attend planning meetings, provide input to incident, action, plan. And provides updates on resources, no, ano pa yung mga available equipments natin, ano pa yung mga kulang, yan. The response time, gaano katagal dapat na, or ano yung ideal time na makapag-respond tayo in an incident. Deployment of personnel. What else? Estimates and procedures, resources for the next operational period. Next, of course, is the finance or administration. Yan. A certain organization would not survive without the finance or the funds. Yan. So, your finance or administration manages all financial aspects, no, of the incident. Kaya nga, pagka sa news naririnig natin, no, naitala na, umabot na 10 milyong piso ang damage, no, na nangyari. Yan, because of, for example, a typhoon. Yan. So, may mga estimation, no, ng financial cost, yan, ng isang incident. Yan. And your finance also create accounts for claims and costs. It coordinates with logistics. Yan. So, sa logistics, andyan ang mga equipments. Now, of course, sino ang magpo-procure or bibili ng mga equipment? Saan natin kukunin yung pambili ng equipment? Sa finance. Yan. Magkano yung mga equipments na kinakailangan? Yan. So, the finance would track that. And even the worker time and costs, no, ng ating materials and supplies. And it also documents claims for damage, liability, and injuries. It notifies risk management or insurance to initiate claims reporting. Dahil may mga insurances dyan. For example, nagkaroon ng sunog, may mga insurance na pwede nilang habulan, pwede nilang i-claim dyan nung mga victim. And provides incurred and forecasted costs at planning meetings. Of course, sa plan, kailangan na natin alamin magkano yung magiging cost no, ng ating gagamitin. And it provides oversight of financial expenditures, new releases, contracts, and assistance agreements to comply with corporate governance. Next, let's talk about the Emergency Operations Center or the EOC. So, your EOC is a physical, for example, a conference room or a virtual or The telephone conference call location designed to support emergency response, business continuity, and crisis communications activities. Ayan. So, emergency operations center, for example, yung uh, center or the facility, no, kung saan nag-ooperate, no, yung ating emergency hotlines. For example, the 911. Yan, who receives the call. So, meron tayong center for that. Yan, merong facility kung nasaan may mga personnel na magre-receive doon sa ating emergency calls. Yan. And that center, no, is your emergency operation center. So, sila ang nagre-receive ng mga calls na yan for emergency. And staff meets at the EOC to manage preparations for an impending event or manage the response to an ongoing incident. So, ito yung ating, kumbaga, headquarters. This is our quarters. Kung nasaan ang mga personnel that is responsible in case of an emergency. Ayan. And the EOC supports the following incident management actions. Ayan. First is the activation. Ayan. So, bring knowledge and expertise together to deal with events that threaten business. We need to inform, we need to activate, we need to make them aware of the threats that might happen or crisis that might happen. And we need to have a situation analysis. So what do we do here? Gather information to determine what is happening and to identify potential impacts. Ano yung mga possible events or ano yung mga nangyayari with the surroundings of our area. Or, for example, we are a business establishment. But what is happening in our surroundings? Ayan. Ano yung mga trends? Diba? Ayan. Ano yung, or sino yung mga possible enemies natin? For example, sa pawn shops. Yan, may mga cases na there are gangs or syndicates na naghuhukay, no? Sa ilalim ng flooring. Yun ang naging gateway nila to enter these pawn shops at limasin yung laman ng pawn shops. So, if that happens, what should we do? Or kung may mga ganong events. Yan. Next, incident briefing. Efficiently share information among team members. Yan. And your incident action plan, this provide a single point for decision-making and decide on a course of action for the current situation. We already have our action plan. Ayan. And we can base on that our decisions in case na magkaroon ng crisis. Next, resource management. Provide a single point of contact to identify, procure, and allocate resources. We need a single point of contact. And hindi natin alam kung sino yung tatawagan. Hindi natin alam kung saan natin hahanapin, no, yung personnel na responsible para sa mga resources na kinakailangan natin in an emergency. And incident management. Monitor actions, capture event data, and adjust strategies as needed. Next, let's proceed to the phases in emergency or disaster planning. So, ano nga ba yung mga steps natin when it comes to emergency or disaster planning? So, for phase 1, assess the situation. We need to assess the situation first before we deploy personnel, before we procure equipments, or before tayo mag-task ng mga personnel. Kasi ito pa lang yung ating plans. So, kailangan nating mag-gather ng information sa ating phase 1 This will be a research in depth by a knowledgeable and specially trained group on the vulnerabilities as well as the resources available for the disaster plan. Ano yung po pwede natin gawin during the phase 1? Surveys and inspection. Yan. So, pwede tayong mag-conduct ng surveys and inspection. Then, for the phase 2 naman, we need to write the plan. The plan will have to be written based on the findings sa ating phase 1. And the plan can also have a code title, and the management will just call for the name of the plan para mas mabilis na ma-identify kung anong plan. Yan. And for the phase 3, we need to test the plan kung effective ba. And will this plan work? And lastly, or for the phase 4, we need to critique the plan. And we need to analyze the feedbacks. And the unworkable procedures should be noted and finally corrected. And kung may mga loopholes pala doon sa ating plans, may mga maling part pala yung plan na hindi dapat natin na i-implement. And next, let's proceed to the checklist for reviewing policies, procedures, and plans. Of course, there were criticisms in the plans. Kailangan natin i-compile, i-review yung mga criticisms na yan. And of course, you also need to include your organization's policies. Kung inline ba yan sa ating mga policies on various contingencies before natin na i-establish yung ating plans. And ensure that these policies are known throughout the organization and that they are included in your emergency manuals. Dapat may basis pa rin tayo sa ating plans. Hindi yun, basta na lang natin yan naisip at inilagay natin yan. Hindi pala siya in line with our policies. And ensure that your procedures and plans are consistent. Yan din sa ating goals ng ating organization. And identify appropriate outside consultants and other sources of assistance in developing and implementing your plans and procedures. Kailangan pa rin natin ng coordination or consultation outside. Yan, we need the assistance of the experts. Yan, dahil hindi rin naman natin alam lahat ng other aspects. Yan, and may mga experts na maaaring makatulong sa atin because they are trained for that. And ensure that the appropriate personnel have any security clearances or background checks which might be required. Kailangan kilala natin yung bawat personnel natin. Hindi po pwede yung itong personnel pala na ito yan ay isang enemy. Kailangan clear. Kailangan alam natin yung background ng isang personnel. Dahil maaaring siya ay pinadala pala ng kalakal. We will never know. And this person might sabotage the plans. And establish a viable record-keeping system and procedures to ensure they are followed. Kailangan natin na mag-keep ng records to keep track. Ano na ba yung mga nangyari? We need to have these reports to keep us informed. Yan. Next, let's talk about organizing a disaster management team. Yan. Pagdating naman sa ating mga teams, we have our disaster management team. Yan. So, how can we be able to organize them? So, disaster team leadership is vested with primary task, which is to ensure that the control is maintained over the team's activities, information flow, and the implementation of decisions and organizational policies. Kailangan na dyan pa rin yung control. Hindi ito yung pinag-usapan natin during the plan, ito yung procedures na dapat natin gawin pagdating doon sa area, nagkawatak-watak na yung ating mga personnel. Nataranta na yung personnel. Yan. So, for this reason, the team leader should be a person who has demonstrated ability to function under pressure, must have sufficient authority to make on-the-spot decisions within the framework of overall organization's policy, access to decision makers when required, and the ability to recognize which decisions to make independently. Yan. Or, yung kanyang discretion. Kailangan magkaroon ng wise judgment yung ating disaster team leader. Dahil, when it comes to emergency, dapat mabilis ang action at tama ang action na gagawin. Yan. So, ano ang duties no, ng ating disaster action team? Yan. So, on pre-event, bago magkaroon ng disaster. First, supervise the formulation of policies. Yan. So, bago magkaroon ng disaster, ito yung mga bagay na dapat nagawa. Ensure the development of procedures. Participate in preparing plans. Oversee and anticipate in exercise of plans. Select crisis management or disaster center. Participate in personnel training. Review preparation of materials. Delegate authority, brief personnel, ensure the assembly of supplies, and ensure preparation of rest, food, and medical areas. Yan. And, during the event naman ng crisis, no, kung nangyayari na tong crisis, ito yung mga bagay na dapat gawin ng ating disaster action team. Establish shift schedules immediately. Delegate tasks. Focus underlying problem. Maintain control. Follow organizational policies. Use prepared procedures. No, importante yan. Use prepared procedures. You were already briefed kung ano na ang gagawin, kung ano ang dapat natin gawin pagdating doon. So, dapat sundin mo kung ano yung procedure. Hindi yung mismong personnel pagdating doon nataranta. Hindi niya alam yung gagawin yung action. And, kung kailangan ng innovation, we can also do that. It depends upon the situation. And, ensure that information is shared with the entire team. Hindi yung alam ng lahat mo, maliban dun sa isa, kung ano ang gagawin. Or, may pagbabago pala, may changes pala doon sa procedure. Hindi alam nung isa. Yan. Magkakaroon ng problema dyan. And review all press release and public statements. Double check or confirm informations if possible. Aid victim and their families and try to anticipate future consequences. Control stress of team members dahil tao lang din yung mga team members. They also experience stress yan, sa mga crisis na yan. And ensure log maintenance. So, before and after the event, dapat nakapag-log ang ating personnel. And after ng incident, on post-event, ito na yung mga bagay na kinakailangan natin gawin. Evaluate effectiveness of plans. Naging effective ba yung plan na ginawa namin? Evaluate adequacy of procedures. Sapat ba yung mga procedures na ginawa? Debrief personnel to minimize their stress. Dahil na-orient sila, kailangan ma-debrief sila. Na-brief sila, kailangan may debriefing din tayo. Evaluate equipment and training use. Ano yung mga mas kinailangan nung nagkaroon ng ganito? Ano yung mga mas nagamit? Yan. Revise plans and procedures in the light of new experience. Reward personnel as appropriate. And document events. Prepare after-action reports. Arrange an orderly transition to normal conditions para makabalik ng maayos sa normal. Yan. Next, let's proceed to the chain of events during a disaster. Yan. So, sa chain of events, this is simplified as follows. First, security receives an initial report of emergency. So, makakatanggap tayo ng report no, na nagkaroon ng emergency. So, may tawag dyan. No, may tatawag at magre-report na may emergency na nangyayari. Yan. And ano ang gagawin no, ng ating personnel or ng security natin that receive the report? Yan. He or she will notify the disaster team leader. And the team leader will decide if immediate action is required. No, kailangan ba natin ng immediate action? Kung kinakailangan ng immediate action, kailangan i-notify yung other team members. No? Yan. To convene at the crisis management center. Ipatawag natin yung mga team members dahil kailangan natin mag-responde. And initial liaison, established and actions taken. Yan. Ito yung mga kinakailangan natin gawin. No? Create log, contact family, employees involved. Sino yung mga pinadala nating personnel? Yan. The government or law enforcement liaison contacts. And prepare contingency press guidance and others. And, of course, respond to the event. Okay, so that ends our disaster and emergency planning discussion. Here are your references for further review.